There comes a time in every life when the weight of this world becomes too much, a moment when the path disappears beneath your feet, when people you trusted walk away, when dreams you built collapse like sandcastles under a rising tide. You stand there, heart heavy, hands empty, and wonder why. But what if this wasn't your ending? What if it was your beginning? In Buddhism, suffering is not a mistake. It is not a punishment. It is a sacred messenger, a quiet guide leading you back to truth. As the Buddha once said, pain is certain, suffering is optional. Just as a lotus rises unsoiled from muddy waters, so too can we rise from sorrow, pure, aware, and awakened. Today, I'll share 7 powerful lessons from Buddhist wisdom to help you realize that life didn't break you to destroy you, but to awaken you, because sometimes what shatters you is what truly saves you. 1. The break is the start of seeing clearly. Most people live their lives behind an invisible curtain, caught up in a race they never questioned. We chase things like approval, recognition, material success, and emotional comfort, thinking that if we just have these things, we'll finally be happy. But the truth is, many of these things only give us temporary relief. They distract us from deeper questions. They make us feel busy, but not fulfilled. We start to believe that our worth is tied to what we own, how others see us, or how smoothly life goes. That's the illusion. Then suddenly life breaks something you thought would always be there. Maybe someone you love walks away. Maybe a dream you've worked on for years collapses. Maybe an unexpected tragedy shakes the ground beneath your feet. In those moments, it feels like your whole world is falling apart. But something else is happening too. Something quieter, deeper, and more important. The illusion starts to crack. You begin to notice what you couldn't see before. You start to realize that some of the things you depended on were never really stable. Maybe the job wasn't your true passion. Maybe the relationship was built on fear, not love. Maybe the identity you clung to was never really yours. Pain strips away what is false. It clears away the fog. It forces you to stop and ask, what is actually real in my life? This kind of breaking hurts deeply, but it is also a beginning, because once the surface shatters, the truth underneath can finally come to light. You begin to see how much of your life was shaped by fear, by habits, by trying to please others. You begin to see what really matters, and that painful clarity becomes your first step toward a more honest, awake, and peaceful life. 2. Pain is a doorway, not a life sentence. When pain enters your life, it often feels like a wall, solid, cold, and impossible to get past. You might feel trapped inside your suffering, as if you've been thrown into a prison with no key and no way out. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us something radically different. It tells us that pain is not a wall, it's a doorway, a passage, a teacher in disguise. Suffering in Buddhism is not the end of your peace, it's the path to it. The first noble truth teaches that suffering exists in every life. But the purpose of that truth is not to make you hopeless, it's to help you stop running. Because as long as you see pain as something to escape from, you will never stop being afraid. But when you begin to see your pain as a teacher, your entire relationship with it changes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this here to teach me?" That single shift opens the door. When life breaks you, you're not being punished, you're being invited to go deeper, to stop living on the surface, to step away from the noise of the world and listen to the quiet truth inside you. The pain is pointing somewhere. It is asking you to examine your attachments, to look at what you've been clinging to, whether it's people, expectations, control, or old versions of yourself. This doesn't mean that the suffering itself is easy. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but but it does mean you no longer have to fight it. Instead of resisting, you can begin to observe. You can sit with it, breathe with it, and in doing so, you start to see that the pain has edges, that it rises and falls, that it does not last forever. When you treat your suffering as a path instead of a prison, something beautiful happens. Your pain transforms. What once felt like punishment begins to feel like guidance. What once seemed like a curse begins to reveal itself as a gift. You are not stuck. You are not doomed to carry this forever. You are walking through something, not into it. And on the other side of that doorway is clarity, healing, and a version of you who sees life more deeply than ever before. 3. What you lost was never meant to stay forever. When life takes something or someone away from you, the pain can feel unbearable. You may feel abandoned, betrayed, or even punished. Your heart holds on tightly, clinging to the memory, the attachment, the way things used to be. You replay old moments in your mind and wonder why it all had to change. But Buddhism reminds us of a deep truth that is hard to accept in the middle of grief. Nothing lasts forever. This principle is called anicca, or impermanence. Everything in this world, our possessions, our relationships, our titles, our bodies, is temporary. Everything is constantly changing, whether we notice it or not. And yet, we often live as if the things we love will stay the same forever. We make plans, we build dreams, we form attachments, and then life, in its quiet wisdom, reminds us that all things are borrowed. That relationship you lost, it may have taught you what love is. That job you were forced to leave, it may have led you closer to your real purpose. That friend who walked away may have cleared space for someone who truly sees you. When you hold on to what's gone, you suffer twice, once from the loss, and again from the refusal to let it go. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean erasing the past. It means accepting that the past cannot be brought back, and that your peace depends on loosening your grip. When something falls away from your life, it is not always because you failed. Sometimes it is because you are being guided to something better, or to someone you've neglected for too long, yourself. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to observe life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Just like the leaves fall in autumn, just like the river flows and never holds on to one spot, everything in life moves. What comes must go. What rises must fall. But in that flow, there is beauty. In that release, there is freedom. When you realize that what you lost was never truly yours to keep, you stop clinging. And in that space, something new begins. A deeper peace, a wiser heart, a quieter mind. You stop asking, "Why did life take this from me?" and instead whisper, "Thank you for showing me I was holding too tightly." And just like that, your healing begins. 4. Stillness is born in the fall. There are moments when life knocks you to your knees so hard, you don't even have the strength to get back up. Everything feels heavy. You try to move, to fix things, to go back to how they were, but nothing works. The people you once turned to are no longer there. The plans you carefully made no longer make sense. And for the first time, you are forced to stop. Not because you want to, but because you have no choice. This is what Buddhists understand as a sacred pause, a deep silence that follows collapse. At first, it feels empty, like the air has been sucked out of the room. You might call it hopelessness. But in truth, this stillness is not your enemy. It is your beginning. When everything else falls away, what remains is space. Space to see clearly. Space to breathe. Space to just be. We spend most of our lives chasing success, love, approval, distraction, anything to avoid sitting still with ourselves. But when life breaks us, it takes away all those distractions. It removes the noise, and in that silence, something ancient begins to speak the voice within you, the quiet presence that has always been there, but was drowned out by the world. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the presence of awareness. It is the space where your thoughts slow down and your breath becomes your anchor. It's where you begin to notice things you've been running from: your fears, your regrets, your pain, but also your strength, your resilience, your wisdom. In that stillness, you're not doing anything. You're simply being, and being is enough. In Buddhist practice, stillness is where true transformation begins. Meditation is not just about closing your eyes. It's about opening your awareness. It's about watching your suffering rise and fall without trying to escape it. It's about realizing that the storm outside you doesn't have to shake the peace within you. The fall may feel like a failure, but it is actually a return to what matters, a return to now. You are not broken because you fell. You are breaking away from everything that was false, noisy, and untrue. And in the quiet that follows, you don't find nothing. You find everything. 5. You are not the pain you carry. When life breaks you, it doesn't just hurt. It changes the way you see yourself. You begin to believe that the pain is who you are, that your sadness is your identity, that your trauma defines your worth, that because you were hurt, you are somehow broken, damaged, or less than others. But this belief is not the truth. It is a shadow cast by the mind, not the light of awareness. In Buddhism, one of the most powerful teachings is this: you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your memories or your past. You are the awareness behind all of them. Just as the sky holds clouds, storms, and sunshine, but is never affected by them, your true self holds every experience, every feeling, and every thought without being defined by them. Yes, you have felt deep pain. Maybe you've been abandoned. Maybe you've faced betrayal, illness, rejection, or loss. That pain is real. It has left marks on your heart. But it is not your identity. It is something you've lived through, not something you are. Your suffering is a guest that entered your home, not the walls of the home itself. And just like any guest, it will not stay forever. The problem is that when pain lingers, the mind clings to it. It plays it over and over again, like a broken song whispering, "This is who you are now." And slowly, you start wearing your wounds like a name tag. But Buddhism invites you to take a step back and look at your pain from a different place, from the place of the witness. The place that observes without judgment, without clinging, without fear. When you meditate or sit in silence, you begin to see your pain as waves on the surface of the ocean. Some days the waves are wild and stormy. Other days they are quiet and still. But beneath all of it, the ocean remains vast and unshaken. That ocean is you, your awareness, your true nature. The waves are your emotions. They may be strong, but they are not you. They do not define the depth beneath. The moment you stop saying, "I am broken," and instead say, "I am experiencing pain, but I am not the pain," you take back your power. You create space between your soul and your suffering. And in that space, healing begins. Not because you force it, not because you fix it, but because you no longer let it own you. You start to treat yourself with more compassion. You begin to understand that the way you feel is not a reflection of your worth. It is just a moment passing through you. You begin to see that you can hold grief without becoming grief, that you can carry sadness without drowning in it, that you can feel fear without being ruled by it. And most importantly, You begin to remember something that your pain tried to make you forget. That deep down, beneath all the cracks and scars, you are still whole. You always were. You were never the storm. You were the sky holding it all. So the next time you feel broken, remind yourself gently, this is a feeling, not a fact. This is a moment, not a lifetime. The pain you carry is not who you are. It is what you've survived. And what you've survived has only made your light stronger. 6. Brokenness makes you more compassionate, not less whole. In the quiet aftermath of being broken, something unexpected begins to grow. Not bitterness, not weakness, but tenderness. You may not notice it at first, but as the dust settles and your heart begins to soften, you find yourself understanding pain in a new way. Not just your own, but the pain of others. The very suffering that once isolated you now opens a door to connection, to empathy, to something Buddhism holds as sacred compassion. We are often taught by the world to hide our broken parts, to mask our sorrow with smiles, to act like we're always okay, to move on quickly so no one sees our wounds. We're told that to be strong means to be untouched by pain. But Buddhist wisdom teaches the opposite. It teaches that real strength is not the absence of pain, it is the ability to sit with pain, to learn from it, and then to use it to help others heal. When you have truly suffered, when you've sat alone with your grief, when you've walked through long nights with a heart full of ache, you come out different. You begin to notice things. The quiet sadness in someone's eyes, the trembling in someone's voice, the way someone forces a smile when they're barely holding it together, and without trying to fix them or offer empty advice. You simply understand that understanding, that soft recognition, is the seed of true compassion. And that compassion doesn't come from reading books or learning teachings. It comes from your own breaking. It comes from the nights you thought you wouldn't make it, but did. It comes from every time you felt invisible and still chose to be kind. It comes from your lived experience, raw, real, unfiltered. In Buddhism, the Bodhisattva, the enlightened being who chooses to stay behind to help others, embodies this spirit. The Bodhisattva doesn't help because they are perfect. They help because they've suffered, awakened, and now wish to ease the suffering of others. They know the way because they've walked it. And that can be you too. Your brokenness is not your disqualification, it is your qualification. It does not make you less capable of love. It makes you more real in your love, more present, more honest. You stop needing to prove anything. You stop judging people's pain. You don't rush their healing or compare their struggle. You simply sit with them, heart open, without fear. This kind of presence is rare. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't demand attention, but it's unforgettable. Because when someone has been broken and healed, they carry a certain gentleness, a quiet wisdom that doesn't try to impress, only to understand. That's the beauty of compassion born from brokenness. It's not pity. It's not superiority. It's solidarity. It says, I've been there, I know the ache, and I'm here with you. So, if you've been hurt and you're afraid that your pain has made you less, know this. Your brokenness has not diminished you. It has expanded you. It has deepened the well of your empathy. It has carved space in your heart for others to rest. And that is a gift the world desperately needs. You do not have to be fully healed to be a light for others. You only have to be willing to stay soft, even after all you've been through. And in that softness, in that quiet, steady kindness, you become someone who not only survives suffering, but transforms it into peace. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who crosses your path. 7. The break was the awakening you didn't know you needed. At first, the breaking feels like death, not the end of your physical life, but the slow unraveling of everything you thought you were. It feels like the loss of self, the collapse of meaning, the disappearance of a future you once believed was certain. You look around, and nothing looks familiar. You try to move forward, but the path you once walked is gone. And in that dark, disoriented space, it's easy to believe that this is the end, that the breaking has ruined you, that life has taken more than it could ever give back. But what if this wasn't destruction? What if it was a quiet beginning, a sacred unraveling sent not to end your story, but to start a new chapter from the truth? Buddhist wisdom reminds us that suffering is not a curse. It is the doorway to awakening. The Buddha himself did not awaken in comfort. His path began with deep discontent, with questions that pierced through illusion. He saw sickness, old age, and death, and for the first time, he understood that all the joys of life couldn't protect him from suffering. In that painful understanding, a deeper journey started, not outward, but inward. Your heartbreak is your version of that moment. When your heart breaks, when your illusions collapse, when everything falls apart, something ancient wakes up inside you. The part of you that was hidden under expectations, noise, and habits starts to rise. At first, it doesn't feel like awakening. It feels like being lost. But what's really happening is the shedding of false layers, the release of roles you were never meant to play, and the identities you created to survive, not to grow. The ego, built on control and attachment, resists the breaking. It grieves the loss of how things once were. It pleads to go back. But the soul, the quiet, timeless part of you, knows that going back means falling asleep again. And so, life pushes you forward, even if it has to push you through pain. The lotus flower, a sacred sign in Buddhism, grows only in muddy waters. Its beauty exists not despite the mud, but because of it. Without the dark, heavy waters, there is no rising. The mud feeds the root. The darkness makes the stem stronger, and slowly, from the lowest place, something beautiful appears, clean, open, and untouched by the dirt it grew through. This is your awakening. It might not happen all at once. There may be days when the pain returns, when the doubts feel louder than the truth. But slowly, something shifts. You start to notice the space between your thoughts. You begin to respond rather than react. You start to value the breath, the stillness, and the present moment. You realize that peace was never found in a perfect life. It was always in perfect presence. You begin to see that the things you once chased, approval, control, status, and security, were never the real answer. You start to feel lighter, not because everything around you is perfect, but because you've stopped carrying what was never yours to hold. The old self, the one built on fear, on pleasing others, on pretending, slowly fades away. In its place, a more honest self appears, one that isn't afraid to feel, to let go, and to be awake. You may not have chosen the breaking. You might still feel the pain of what you've lost, but when you look closer, you'll see that what broke was never really you. It was just the shell that life gently, yet painfully, cracked open to show who you truly are. The awakening was hidden within the falling apart, and now you see with new eyes. You walk with deeper steps. You speak with a gentler voice, not because you are weaker, but because you are wiser. You've stopped clinging to the illusion of control. You no longer fear the unknown. You now understand that everything can be taken, yet you will still rise. You know that even if life breaks you again, and it will, you are no longer afraid, because breaking is not the end. It is a return to stillness, a return to presence, a return to the sacred truth inside you that was always there, quietly waiting for you to awaken. If you are still carrying the weight of what hurt you, remember this: you are not broken beyond healing. You are not too far gone. You are not ruined. You are simply in the middle of something sacred, something that can't be rushed, forced, or skipped. Healing is not a straight path. Awakening is not just one single moment. And peace is not something you find. It is something you return to when the noise fades and only the truth remains. Everything that life took from you, everything that fell apart, everything that ended, none of it was meant to destroy you. It was meant to remove the layers that were never really you. It was meant to humble your ego and soften your heart. It was meant to slow you down so you could finally hear, truly hear, the still and wise voice inside you. The voice that has been gently whispering all along. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not your story. You are awareness. You are presence. You are the witness. And the fact that you're still here, breathing through everything, is proof that your story isn't over. It's just beginning to feel real. Let the breaking open you. Let it teach you. Let it soften you. And most importantly, let it lead you back to yourself. Not the self shaped by fear or by others' expectations, but the true self that watches, forgives, and shines quietly. As the Buddha said, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We must walk the path on our own. And now, you are walking it gently, bravely, and fully awake. May your journey be filled with stillness. May your heart grow lighter with every breath. And may your pain no longer be a prison, but a path. If this touched your heart, share it with someone who is still healing. Someone who needs to remember that being broken is not the end. It's how the light finds its way in. Until next time, be gentle with your heart. Sit with your soul and move softly through the world. You are healing, and that itself is a miracle.